right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our guest of honor interview here at Flights of Foundry. 2022, I guess I should specify the year since we've had a couple of them now. And our pros guest of honor, as you can see here, is LD. I'm sorry, not pros guest of honor,
Yeah,
editing
I'm
guest
the
of
editor.
honor.
Yeah, there we go.
Editing guest of honor is LD Lewis. She does so many things, as I'm about to get into, that it's a little bit confusing what she's here for because she's amazing. So first of all, I guess since I started with the writing, she is an amazing writer. She writes short fiction. She's been published in Faya, Strange Horizons, Lightspeed, Fireside. The list goes on and on. Go find her bio on her website. She's published a novella called Room of Shadows, published by Dancing Star Press. Not only a writer, but she does editing, and that's what she's here as the guest of honor for. She does editing currently for Fireside Magazine. She acquires
Publisher,
novels for
publisher,
Tor.
publisher at
Oh, you're the
Fireside.
publisher.
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Um, she acquires novellas for Tor.com, and she's also involved heavily with Faya Literary Magazine, the Hugo Award winning and multiple award nominated Faya Magazine. And on top of all that, as if that wasn't enough, she does a whole boatload of community work in the SFS community, which we're also hopefully going to be able to talk about a little bit during the course of this interview. But she has done things like direct and start from the ground up FiaCon, which some of you may have attended in the past. It's a virtual convention. She's also done things like attended roundtables and published articles about marginalized voices and the problem that we have in the SFF community of not being represented enough. And here I'm going to hand it over to you in case I forgot anything, because it's a big freaking list.
It is.
So here we are, LD Lewis.
I gotta sleep more, man. Um, yeah, so hi. I know that this was advertised as a reading somehow. I have nothing to read. So this will just be an interview. Um, I have like a number of previously published things and a couple of things that have just sold, and so I cannot read immediately. But hopefully this won't bore you terribly. Oh, puppy. Um, yeah, that was pretty much my entire bio. I do a lot. Been with FIA since its inception in 2016. Um, and everything else just kind of grew out of that. Back to you, Coral.
Okay. Hopefully my dog will cooperate and be quiet.
If not,
Of
I'm
course,
fine.
I'm
This
on
is
a
like,
video and she's like, I'm going to scream all over the house.
yeah, sure.
Anyway, so yeah, you have been heavily involved in the community on all different sides. And I've got a few questions here to ask you. I'm going to ask if anybody in the audience has questions, put them in the chat here with the word question in front, all in caps. And we'll see if we have time to deal with some of them closer to the end of the time. And I think I'm just going to jump in and we'll start talking and see what happens. And as I was saying, you've been involved on a lot of different sides of this industry. You started out as a writer, though. How has becoming an editor and a publisher changed your relationship with writing? Has it been a positive impact or a negative impact, do you think?
Um, I'm in a deficit of time for writing now because all of these other things, which pay more, and we live in a capitalist hellscape. Um, I've started to do these other things. Let's see. So I shopped my first novel. It was like book one of a trilogy or whatever back in like 2015, something like that. Signed with my agent off my first book and then like failed to sign that anywhere else after that. Um, but I think after that, once I became agented, I think I started participating more actively in the community and all these other places, paying attention to different conversations that were going on, where disparities were, um, where people were struggling, and I have this busybody nature about me that if I see a thing that I have a vision to fix, I will just do that thing. And so that has kind of snowballed into um, a very lengthy publishing bio, and I exist in a number of uh, different aspects of the field now, which is great. I actually run into quite a few people who are, um, I'll say three at this point. That's not quite a few, but it's enough. Who are alarmed when I comment on things. So I don't know if that's a notch on my belt or what, but I have. It's been interesting to kind of grow and impact from basically what started out as a curiosity about how publishing works.
That's I'm always mystified by people who like won't even check your Twitter bio to see before they start questioning why you should be talking in a conversation or something.
You
That
know
happens to
who
me
I
too.
am. It's hard not to be like you have no idea who you're talking to. So
You absolutely should. Do you know who I am? Them because that would be amazing. I fully endorse this plan. All right. And kind of on the back end of that, you don't have time to do as much writing. You're doing a lot of other things. Do you feel like your editorial choices that they mesh with what your writing style is? Like, so do you find that you acquire things that seem like they are your themes or your styles, or do you like to pick things that are very different from what you write? Or maybe both.
definitely things that are different. I primarily read nonfiction because it helps inform um, my world building and stuff that way. I find if I read too much speculate or whatever, I am terrified of um, becoming derivative or like an amalgamation of like all of these different things that I'm consuming. So when I do acquire things, I try and prioritize the author's vision for the work as opposed to like what I want to get out of it. Um, and hopefully I do a good job of I don't know. No, nobody's complained yet, but um, it's I don't know. It's fun to kind of exist in worlds that I did not create. Takes a whole lot of nervousness and anxiety off my plate by developing somebody else's stuff.
Mm, yeah, I can see that. Um, it's it's interesting how invested you become, I think, as a an editor in seeing the work of the authors find its I don't know, true purpose or whatever. Which sounds really
It's one
like
true form. Yeah, get to
right. I'm gonna help.
mold the thing, make the thing that it put the thing out in the form that everybody else is going to consume it in. So you want to make sure that it's as near to the author's vision as possible without becoming incoherent because I'm very good at writing incoherent things that other people have to kind of pick apart. But I don't know, it's worked out, so it's mine.
So what is it's always very hard to pick a favorite. So I'm not going to phrase this question that way because favorite is very reductive anyway. What is something that you are very proud that you brought into the world as an editor?
Most recently, it's probably Viviane Glass won the third place slot in the Laura Burton Reed's writing contest, which I coordinated and then co-edited. And I edited Synthetic Perennial is the title of the work. It's up on Tor.com. Um, it was a very not sensitive subject matter, but it was a very intimate, kind of difficult story. Had a very interesting take on, um, what we take from technological advancements, and what it means to us as human beings, people who are being enhanced and people who are witnessing the advancement. So um, I was very, very proud of that, very proud of the reception that's received, as well as the other two stories. But that one was like my baby for the purpose of that contest.
I think you broke up a little bit right at the end of
No,
that. So we got whatever story you mentioned at the end. We didn't get the name of, I don't believe.
I didn't mention another name of the story, so it's
Oh,
fine. It's
okay.
Viviani Glass's Synthetic Perennial up on Tor.com. You can read the other two entrance into the contest there.
Oh, okay. That's probably what we missed at the end. Okay, excellent. Uh, ooh, technical glitch got to my brain a little bit. Where was I going with that, Coral? Um, oh boy. I had a question all queued up related to that. Oh, we didn't even mention the LeVar Burton Reads podcast when we did your bio
No,
intro.
we
That's what I wanted to
didn't.
segue
Yeah.
into.
Hey, hi, I'm the researcher for the LeVar Burton Reads podcast. So I've been with the podcast for like the last 3, 4 seasons, and it's a good chance that if you liked an episode of that, I was the one who picked it out. So you're welcome.
Yay! I love that podcast. And the stories are all so good.
Anyone does. They should. You should love anything LeVar Burton does. Just support any and all of his endeavors.
Absolutely. All right. And in terms of what you see coming in your submission boxes, is there something you wish there was more of and you don't see enough of? And conversely, is there something you see too much of and would like to stop?
Not nearly enough adventure stories. There are very few sort of saga things where there's like exploration of a landscape or a world or something. A lot of stories tend to be kind of character vignettes with not a lot of um, world building behind them. There's a lot of internal stuff, and I love a good character driven story and everything, but I would like to see a bit more um, originality from spec writers in terms of how we envision our environments, for better or worse or whatever. Um, don't get enough of that. Do get a lot of trauma submissions. Um, I think there are large swaths of the community that don't understand what speculative fiction is. And so I'm often sent memoirs of very traumatic existences, which are completely valid, but not at all my lane. So really on that front, it's just more of um, knowing who you're submitting to, doing, a bit of research about anything having to do with the industry. Um, it takes it's a Google to figure out, what what theme or what genre, memoirs would fall into. And people don't know that, so these people know it. This is a SFF thing. So yeah.
Read your submission guidelines, people. That's the message here. Yeah, I think we could all use a little less trauma and a little more joy. I mean, I think I agree with that assessment 100%. And there are several panels this weekend, by the way, on like cozy and finding joy and things like that here. So if you want that, go out into the schedule and find it. All right. Uh, you've seen several aspects of the science fiction and fantasy industry now. So you've been a writer, you've been an editor, you've been kind of, I'm going to say activist. You don't call yourself an activist, but I think you are. Um, and what is a piece of advice you would give someone who's trying to like break into the industry right now that you think will help them?
Um, I think the industry is about as democratized as it's going to get. It's not hard to start um, a literary magazine online, especially if you're not, going into print or anything. You can carve out these spaces for yourself. The communities exist that support writers. Um, these are all things that exist, and you can kind of avail yourself to them or not. And I just kind of chose to. Um, we had Fire got started because Fireside Magazine, at that point, Fireside Fiction Company, had published the first iteration of the Black Spec Fic Report which reported on the presence of stories authored by Black people in speculative fiction, short fiction markets specifically, and found that we were something like less than 2% of an annual output, and that was across pro, semi-pro, and like token markets. And so it was something that we always kind of knew, but it was not quantifiable until that point. And so FIA became a thing. And we are still publishing an outsized portion of Black writers every year. More on that in a study I'll be releasing in the fall. But yeah, it's just about being able to. I don't consider myself an activist, at least not in publishing space, an organizer, or just like a generally like nosy person with an eye with a good eye for spreadsheets. That's kind of my thing. Um, and I enjoy telling people when they're wrong, uh, so which is a personality flaw, but works in the context of the work I do. Um, so it's about finding the gaps and then filling them with yourself. So, I from having made or been vocal about certain subjects or whatever, people will reach out and offer me additional opportunities or funding to pursue further studies, stuff like that. And I will like chase down these things so that they're out there. It's more about data gathering and presentation for me, finding ways to map information and provide it to people so that they can step into these gaps themselves and fill it. Like I can't do everything. Um, uh, Coral and most of my FIACon family keeps reminding me that I'm not allowed to do everything. Um, but finding this information
She
and
still tries.
presenting it, I don't. I promise. It just finds me. Um, at least I don't do it for free now. Um, that's a perk. But yeah, it's about just kind of paying attention to the conversations, looking um, looking at who needs help and finding ways that within your skill set you can, assist with those things. Um, so yeah.
I ask you for a tiny little spoiler on the report that you're gonna publish? Are we doing better? Are we doing worse? Or is that
We're
totally
we're doing we're doing better. So anyone who is not familiar with my work, I published companion studies to the Black Spectrum reports that Fireside Magazine is putting out. One of them, well, no, it's three of them. One of them provided the author side information because what happened with the Fireside report was that a lot of editors and publishers from um, professional short SFF publications would throw out excuses like, "Oh, Black writers, not enough Black writers of SFF existed, or they weren't submitting to these places." Right?
sorry?
It's crazy. Um, it's it was done. I like to rob people of their excuses. I don't like to see like, "Oh, well, this is an injustice." It's like, "Oh, well, yeah, it is, but I'm not the problem." I like to show you that you are indeed the problem. Um, so that study got released. I started a scoring project, which looked at not just Black writers' bylines or whatever, but existence of different um, diversity and inclusion practices as happens on like submission pages, magazine mastheads, stuff like that. We're getting better there. There are more Black editors out there than there were the first or the last time. Um, I did one of those studies, but we are FIA is still doing a considerable amount of the legwork where it comes to stuff like this. Some magazines have done better. There were, excuse me, there were a few of them who, for like 3 years running under the report, published zero Black writers, and then a few of them have just found one or two Black writers that they really like, and they just publish repeatedly, as if that's an answer. Whatever. But yeah, FIRE's still doing a lot of work. The field is improving, not at my pace, but my pace is kind of breakneck. Um, but it'll be interesting to see when all of the charts and colorful graphs and things come out.
I look forward to it. Talk a little bit about, so that everybody understands, some of the other aspects of that original reporting that you were talking about. Like, so you talked about an increase in Black editors. What are some of the other things that you guys measured, and why are those other things just as important?
So the PubScore report, which is the one that looked at the Black editors, we also looked at submission guidelines, um, mastheads in general, because as a marginalized person, what you're usually going to do to kind of, you get rejected enough, regularly, like as it is, for identity reasons, and then also because, it's writing. Not everybody's great at it. Not everybody's um, going to have like a receptive response to their work. So as a marginalized and multiply marginalized person, um, you're going to kind of look into the venues a bit, make sure that you're not trusting your word to some sort of closeted white supremacist outfit, um, and short of actually reading um, the backlog of a magazine or any publication, which is what they tell you to do, but not enough people actually do. Um, if
And some of them
you
cost money to get.
Exactly. Fire costs money, but that's how we pay people. So I don't know what to tell you. Um, Short of being able to actually read the back issues for anything, the next best thing is going to be making sure that there is someone who looks like you or shares some kind of experience with you in a position of authority somewhere on the magazine. So that's the editor, that's the publisher. If it's a guest editor situation, if the magazine is only supporting marginalized creators in this or that occasional special issue at some point throughout the year. Um, and then looking at guidelines, is inclusive language present there? Is it a venue that doesn't allow certain subject matter because it makes the editor uncomfortable, but it is actually cutting out um, the lived experience of a large number of a lot of different, ethnically diverse groups, something like that. So there's a lot of little check marks and things that you put on, or that I at least put on places I am shopping work. And so we looked at all that in our kind of scoring system for Black people. So were there Black editors or somebody on the masthead? How many Black writers did they publish that year? Is there inclusive messaging or whatever in the submission guidelines? Um, yeah, I think those are the main parts. I think there were some smaller bits as well, but that was the bulk of it. And then for like the writer side part of Fireside's Black Spectrum reports, we would ask things like submitter names to compare that with their submission volume, their rejection volume. Are people, our editors or first readers or whoever rejecting works automatically based off of an ethnic sounding name? Is there an issue with um, AAVE or other dialects or whatever being comprehensible to people who are reading the story for acquisition purposes? Um, which magazines were accepting stuff? What kind of feedback did they get? That's usually that's all anecdotal stuff, but we are able to find common terminology. Couldn't connect with certain characters. We have unfortunately received a number of um, complaints regarding, like we already have one Black writer type thing. Stuff like that still happens even though we've been doing this for a while. You think that at the very least, if you're an editor or a publisher and that's the reason you're rejecting something, just do a form rejection. Why are you out here insulting people like that? But whatever.
Yeah, there's no
Um,
need. Absolutely no need.
just just being ridiculous. But yeah, so it's a lot of kind of numbers crunching. What's most important for me though is actually following these things instead of just picking a point in time and saying publishing does not publish Black writers, and like having that be the thing you're shouting from the mountaintops every time you talk about publishing. If you were saying that back in 2016, well, how many Black writers have you read since then? Have you actually been looking for them? Or are you looking to just keep grinding that same axe? Is that, the talking point? Is that how you gain your followers or whatever? So I like to, if something matters at a point in time, I like to kind of keep track of it to see if it continues to matter, or if people were just having a slow news day and decided that something mattered for a month or two and then just forgot about it.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that, especially coming back around to what you were saying before about keeping an eye on the trajectory of it, right? Like, so people, when you publish a report like that at one point in time, people are going to be like, oh, yeah, we're going to fix that. Obviously, that's a problem. And I think keeping an eye on them to make sure that they actually do something about it is really important, because it's easy at the time to say, we're definitely going to fix that. Wow, that's a
Yeah,
problem. But actually doing something about it is a different thing entirely.
yeah.
Um, and I think one of the things that you were talking about, the submission guidelines, especially, I think that's really underappreciated. Um, because a lot of people don't think that the wording in the submission guidelines from the editor standpoint, that it doesn't really matter as much, I think. But as long as you say what you don't want, it doesn't matter what you say you want. But I think that's not true at all. I think, to your point, you need to say, hey, we are going to publish people of all gender identities. We are going to publish people of all ethnicities. We're going to publish all kinds of things. Here are some examples. And kind of to, excuse me, to let people know that, hey, your stories are welcome here. And to give examples like that. Have you done so, like, I'm going to specify Tor.com, but you don't have to answer for Tor.com, obviously. But is that something you encountered with them, that there was like resistance to changing submission guidelines in that way, that they wanted to just keep using the same?
No. So what Tor is doing, at least recently with novellas, which is what I look at for them, um, it's they've kind of they brought on contractors essentially. So it's not that they have like an open submissions process. It's basically, hey, you have a good eye. Let us know if you find something, whatever. And then like there are rules and things within that, but for the most part, it's make sure that the work you were acquiring is a fit for, Tor.com stuff. And so I kind of just have to be cognizant of what it is that they publish. For things like the LeVar Burton Reads podcast, LeVar set most of those requirements. Um, so I haven't found too many places that are resistant to that kind of change. I haven't found. Okay, I'll rephrase. I haven't found a resistance to change from places where I would actually publish my work. There are plenty of magazines that exist to magnify certain points of view, and many of them are not mine. But that doesn't stop me from, quantifying, what it is that their output. Um, and if they'd like to fight about it sometime, I'm free. It's whatever.
I think that's and going back to something you said actually much earlier, when you said you like to tell people that they're wrong. It's always good to bring the receipts, and I know you love the receipts.
Yep. If I don't have receipts, I don't have an opinion. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's just it's been very interesting, kind of the reception that some of the studies have gotten. There are some publishers, some editors. I am frankly just not allowed to email anymore about things. Um, because they don't like the way that they were painted in the study. So it's fine. Your publication and stuff is still out there. I can still get the information I need. But
Yeah.
I've made enemies, but everybody else is cool, so it's cool.
In the few times that you've done this, did you find, the people who were resistant to giving you information in the beginning, has that changed at all, or are they the same people?
No, same people.
Okay, I was
Uh,
just curious. Maybe they learned
we have
something.
we have courteous exchanges. Um, now, whereas that may not have been the case initially. I think initially it was a legitimate, who the hell are you, and how dare you. Now it's
Mhm.
less legitimate, so um, things have things have been polite for a while.
Who am I? Who are you? I have a Hugo. What are you talking about?
Oh, I should have brought it over. It's over there. It's
Oh
very heavy.
yeah.
It's fine.
Um, okay. Yeah. The um the stuff that you've done, so like let's take Fiacon as an example because I was involved in that. You had to do a boatload of work to get that launched and moving and becoming what it is. I'm not going to use the word was because I am convinced it's going to come back. And
One of
just
these
for
days.
people who might not know in the audience, Fiacon is a virtual convention. It was in 2020 and 2021. Um, Currently on hiatus for an unknown period of time, for reasons maybe we'll get into a little bit later. But you know, there's a lot of fun chat too. So we'll see if it comes back. There are a lot of things going on. There's a lot of people involved that all have other things they would like to do. So let's talk about your experience with Viacom a little bit, and what happened while you were working on that was like there's a lot of work involved, there's a lot of heavy lifting involved, but what was unexpectedly joyful for you in that whole experience?
I never expect joy. So everything good that came out of it, I only expect like unending horrors. So anytime like people end up
This
happy
explains
or
so much
whatever,
about
I'm
your
just like,
writing.
yes, thank you. It's all frantic and violent, and that's just me. So welcome to it. Um, it was fun. I had never run a virtual convention before. Flights of Foundry had done it very well. So uh, let's see. I'd attended a couple, I think, at that point to get a feel for how it could be done, meeting all of the goals that I wanted to meet with it. Um, and For the most part, it was structured as a response to a lot of communities being ignored by traditional or existing convention structures. And we'd always wanted to kind of do, FIA, the entity, we'd always kind of wanted to do workshops or a retreat or a convention or something. COVID made that possible because it made virtual events more tangible. Like people could finally imagine what they would look like. So we started it. It's centering the experiences and contributions of Black, Indigenous, and people of color in speculative fiction. And so all of our programming was structured around that. Our staffing was structured around that. Um, and we wanted to build something that was the goal of it was to center community from the ground up. And so because a lot of these older institutions, conferences and conventions, it's very hard to get them to change. There are bylaws, there are a number of people you have to consult, whatever. Um, and we're like, okay, well, we're fresh and new. We can just do the right thing from jump, and yay. We kind of hoped that most of what I do starts out as an experiment, and that's true for my writing as well. Um, but FiCon was definitely an experiment. We were like, so all of these cons, all of these, um, not gonna say that, all of these people who run these things, um, had excuses for, year after year when they're being taken to task for accessibility or having, tokens on panels or going through, or the panel topics were, 101 level, you know, what is Afrofuturism? Let's ask 5 white people and 1 Black person. So we wanted to structure programming that respected everyone's humanity and experience by default. So we're not having to educate people on, you know, the different cultural storytelling mores that existed. So we did all of that. Um, we charged like $40 or whatever, like 1,000 people showed up. We didn't have to boot anyone. We didn't like it was such just like an enriching space. Like people weren't there. Well, I think what we managed to do was create something that was an event. There was interaction. There was emphasis on um, finding and building communities among the people who were in attendance. And it wasn't just us, you know, shoveling 60 panels down your throat. Like we weren't just content. We were an event. We were a community. And so we did that for a couple of years. I don't know if it was COVID or what, but we got some a good amount of harassment and just general nastiness around our second year. And it just kind of became, you know, the community work is important to everyone who was on staff. But we wanted, the bulk of us were writers first. And we kind of put a bunch of personal projects on the back burner. Career milestones were kind of stalled for a bit while we focused on this other thing. And so rather than put up with the harassment and the negativity and stuff, we took a break. Um, so there isn't one this year, but I have enjoyed very, very much hearing about, you know, how much the 2 years we did do it meant to people. And I hope that, you know, every year I did like every year, both years, I did a retrospective, and it's just like budget breakdowns and, excuse me, we left up the information and profiles and things for all of our panelists in the hopes that other conferences were going to continue, um, you know, kind of looking for more diverse voices, stuff like that. We left everything we did up there as a resource for places that were struggling to find BIPOC, you know, panelists, struggling to find dynamic panel ideas, didn't know where to start with accessibility. All of that stuff we left up there and available for people to just like go out and start their own stuff, because that's what we did. You know, you don't have to keep begging for a seat at somebody else's janky ass table. Like you've got the tools you need to create something beautiful. So that's it. That was a lot of talking. I apologize.
No, this here is for you to talk. I mean, what?
I don't know.
um, I think I wanted to circle back to something you said in there, which was kind of about the inertia of fandom and ancient spaces, and the fact that you guys put up all the receipts on the website and left them there for everybody who's like, there just aren't any Black speculative fiction writers that we could ask about XYZ, or nobody wants to be at our convention. And I think that is maybe, I mean, I enjoyed FiaCon. I helped part of I helped. And I also enjoyed being there. But I think, at least for my part, that is the most important bit of what we did for those 2 years, because it showed everybody you could do this thing if you wanted to. We did it with, you know, some spreadsheets and a lot of grit, and that's it. Like we made it happen out of nothing. We didn't have 30 years of whatever backlog to worry about. And I think the point I was trying to make, now I'm rambling. The point I was trying to make was that they hide behind this, we've done this for so long that we can't possibly do anything new. Like, you can just decide to do something new. And have you heard about anybody doing that? I know that was one of the things we talked about, like at the closing ceremonies of the last FiaCon. So I was just curious if anybody had come back and been like, yeah, we're doing the thing.
No, no. No,
Surprise, surprise.
I've had a few invitations to panel on the topic. I have no idea if anything has come of it. And it may just be that, everybody's just like, oh, this is like nobody writes the dictionary people and they're like, thank you for this valuable resource. So it could just be the case that, it's people are using it and I'm just not finding out, which is perfectly fine. It could also be that people are ignoring it and using a lack of knowledge to excuse their lack of progress. So
Mm. Yeah, that's always, it's hard sometimes to figure out the difference between ignorance and maliciousness, right? Like, are you doing it because you really don't know, or are you trying not to know?
yeah,
All right. And now that we're talking about all of this, uh, you have spent a lot of effort the last few years trying to fix things yourself, trying to do all the work yourself. Um, Tell us, and you've gotten help from other people, and we've tried to stop you from helping too much.
yeah.
Tell us why this industry is worth it. What makes you think that the change that you want to see is going to happen?
God, is it? I don't know.
You're trying, so you must think so. So tell us
Is
why.
I mean, maybe I'm just doing it because I need something to do with my hands. I don't know. Um, so stories are important. Um, I don't know that traditional publishing is the best vehicle for them. Um, I think traditional publishing relies on certain motifs and cliches and marketing obligations that don't actually pan out, but nobody ever goes back to investigate. So they just keep doing the same thing over and over again. Um, uh, the way it's kind of hemorrhaging editors and other vital members of the publishing ecosystem right now. I don't know that in its current form, traditional publishing is worth it. Um, what what's important to me is empowering the people who want and who deserve to tell their stories to tell them. And so through editorial, that's making the story as strong as possible. For to get it into the audience hands in a way that the author intended. Um, from the studies aspects, it's the whole holding up a mirror to the industry, but also pointing out the reality of where we're standing right now. And so authors are able to make their decisions based on facts and not just, somebody's talking point. Um, at some point, it will look like a small press for these things. It's down the pike. Don't ask me anything about it right now. But um, I find small and medium publishers, the people who work there, I find that they seem at least a bit more fulfilled than working, with the big four. Um, I think they do great work. They put out important stories. They're there and a bit more dedicated to holding the hands of people who are trying to break into publishing. And so I like what they're doing. I want to do that stuff. Traditional publishing, I think it's in for a reckoning. The current model is not sustainable, especially if you want um, a wider variety of stories. If you want anything um, dynamic and not structured similarly to everything a publisher is putting out, um, TradPub is going to have to figure out what the fuck it's doing because I don't think they know. Um, but yeah,
Sorry, I'm laughing because the captioner called it Chad Pub, and I just think that's so perfect.
that works. Um, so I really don't think anybody over there, anybody any high enough position to affect change. I don't think they know what they're doing. I think they're trying to run out the clock until the world ends, and we'll see what happens at that point. But it's I would put all of my energy into developing the works of storytellers, and patronizing those smaller presses that seem a bit more invested, um, in creative ways to do storytelling.
I love that a lot. I think I agree with you completely. Um, and I say this with a caveat that I have never been published by like a large traditional publisher, so I don't know the experience, but I know a lot of people who do. I've talked to a lot of people, and the experience is very different. Especially when you're coming in as like somebody who's not very well known. They don't hold your hand. They just kind of print your book and set you off and give you a pat on the head. You're lucky if you even get a pat on the
Yep.
head, and off you go. And here, you don't know how to do marketing. They don't give you any kind of budget, and it's really, I think, daunting for especially marginalized people to come into that and be like, "What am I supposed to do?" I, I, you were supposed to help me with all this stuff, and you're not helping me at all.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if you've looked at the clock, but we're almost done. That went so fast.
It did.
Um,
Wow.
I'm gonna make a call for one more call for questions if anybody's got questions. I saw one a little bit earlier, but I think we kind of answered that one. Someone talked about if leaving the information in place seemed to have an impact on other spaces for FireCon. And you kind of talked about that. You haven't heard about anybody. Hey, if you're out there watching this later and you used FireCon's information, drop Elsie an email and say, hey, I used that information. It was really helpful, so she knows.
I mean, all
And
else
for
fails,
everybody,
I just have a massive, massive list of incredibly talented Black and Brown people to just bring back to FireCon. That's fine.
yay! It's gonna happen, everybody. She said it. No, no promises that it's gonna happen. I that's just I'm trying to will it to be in the world. Okay, so I'm going to give everybody a minute to type up any questions if they have it. And the last question, the one I always like to ask, what are you super excited about right now? And it can be anything. It doesn't have to be about publishing or writing or anything. It can be what TV show you watched or a book you read or whatever. What are you excited about right now?
Oh, pizza.
Pizza.
Very.
Valid. I
I
have some
am
cookies
really,
in the kitchen. I'm going to go grab
I
some as soon
am
as I'm done here.
I am on this cheese kick lately. I don't know what is going on. I don't know what vitamin I am deficient in that makes me want cheese really badly, but that's where we are. Other things I am extremely excited about. The concept of time, and it freeing up at some point so I can do the thing that I took off FireCon to actually do and actually write. I'm still not doing that. Um,
Oh, let's sidebar real quick. I'm sorry. We were going to talk real briefly about how when you went out to ask for people to give you resources to do writing, what you got in response was uh,
Invitations to do more work, more labor, more
exactly
non-writing.
more
Uh,
non-writing community work. Is that a
yeah,
symptom of the problem, do you think?
yeah, I think everybody knows like three people who are good at doing a lot of different stuff, and it's those three people who are asked to do everything. I would love for people to kind of reframe these events and studies and things um, as uh, things that they should be willing to learn, as opposed to be like, oh wow, that's neat. Let me know when you do the next thing. It's it's tiresome. I would still love to finish. I've started like 12 different stories, and I think like 11 of them have like more than 3 paragraphs in them. So I'm trying. But I don't know if you're familiar. I also run the Lammies, so that's been a thing. Um, I'll be doing possibly, probably, maybe tech for the Nebula ceremony. Um, I was the convention chair or conference chair last year. Um, and so I have multiple events coming up. I have another Hugo to maybe possibly potentially collect in September. At some
Are you going
point,
to go to Chicago? Are people going to see you
yeah,
there?
yeah,
Okay.
I'll be there. Um, let's see. Less for Worldcon, which was a thing. We'll say that next year.
We could do a
Um,
whole another interview just on that, I'm sure.
yeah,
That's another panel.
yeah. So I have, I have a lot of kind of irons still in the fire. I thought that I would have less by like canceling stuff, but apparently that's not the case. Um,
You just find
yeah,
other
I
things to
just,
do. It's a problem.
no, I don't think I picked up anything new since I was like, no FireCon next year. And like here I am with just like 3 seconds a day to rub together, and it's just I don't know. I feel like I have more time when I have more to do. Now that I have like nothing, it's just like I don't know, it's nonsense. But yes, I'm excited about pizza and free time.
And cheese.
And cheese, yes.
All
Cheese is
right.
free time.
Tell everybody who is here where you can go drop your links in the Discord channel too. What I think we're in the Rookery channel, and you can see
Yeah,
the conversation there if anybody's had conversation too.
sure. Yeah, I'll pop in there for a few minutes after this. But thank all 10 of you for being here. It's been lovely. I am on Twitter and to a much lesser extent Instagram at Elleville and ELLE. Um, and let's see, my
Okay.
website, LD Lewis Writes, it's woefully out of date. Um, but you can find some of the stuff I've actually written there. I look forward to updating it with additional things at some point. Um, and then keep an eye out for the next iteration of the Black Spectre report, which I'm inheriting and sort of assuming into FIA. Um, and an inclusion in numbers study, which is going to look at young adults, and middle grade representation in terms of multiple demographics, a la CCBCs. Both of those things coming out in the fall/winter. Looking forward to the angry emails coming after that.
Why does there have to be angry email?
There's always going to be angry emails because all I'm doing is being like, hey, here's your publication. For the last 3 years, you have published one Black person. How does that make you feel? And then it's mostly just like fuck yous from there. So I don't know. It's out of my hands. I call it like I see it. But we'll see.
Well, here's hoping. I'm hopeful. I'm always hopeful. All right, everybody in the audience, thank you for coming. Thank you for all the love in the chat. It was very much appreciated. Thank you, Elle, for being a delightful interview. And I hope everybody has an excellent rest of the convention.
Yay! Thank you all so much. I appreciate it. I'm sorry I didn't read. I don't know. Honestly, if I would have read something, like I drift in and out of like a Welsh accent. I don't know why.
Oh no, now I
I
want
don't
to
know
hear
why.
that.
I don't know why. It's like I'm a very inebriated 80-year-old Welsh man at some points throughout my
Oh,
narration. I can't understand it. My inner voice is something else. I'm not quite sure, but I apologize for not having had something to read for you, but I hope that you enjoyed the thing, and thank you so
I
much
feel
for
like
being
I missed
awesome.
out now.
You did. You did. So sorry.
All right. Goodbye, everyone. I am going to push the end meeting button in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.